Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Pod Smash. 80-bit Pod Smash.
Where gaming goes to grab a beer.
Gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite.
And we're a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas you care about with video games. And tonight, Termite, what are we talking about as evidenced by my opening song?
A Halo!
Let me see a Halo.
Halo, Halo!
Every time. Those are the two songs that come to mind. Either the Gregorian chants or Halo.
Yes, that's all there is. There's no other options.
That's it. That's all there is. So yeah, we're doing one of our everything episodes on Halo. And guys, I swear to you, I had to check, double check, triple check everything. Because I could have sworn we did an everything Halo already. And I'm shocked that we haven't.
Yeah, we
haven't done it yet. So with Halo Infinite's campaign release this week, because the multiplayer has been out for a few weeks now, with the campaign releasing this week, we wanted to celebrate that and do an everything Halo. So that's why we're here, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We'll get to that, though. In the meantime, we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight, which I haven't even opened yet, because I got distracted by all the Halo stuff. So let's do that.
Lovely.
I am drinking Aleworks Brewing Company's Fun Old-Fashioned Family Christmas Ale, which is a Christmas ale brewed with spices.
Nice.
And I would say in the category of all of the different types of Christmas ales that are not stouts, this one is exceptional. It is absolutely wonderful. I love the spices that you get. It does taste like Christmas in a can without it being a crazy bourbon barrel stout. It is 8% alcohol, so it's a little bit boozy, and that flavor does come through. But it really is just like a general ale, which does sound boring with the Christmas spices, but it's got the cinnamon and the nutmeg kind of vibe to it with a little bit of a medium body and a lingering aftertaste along the sides of your tongue. So it's dark in color, which I haven't known yet because I've not drank it out of a glass. It actually kind of looks like Mad Elf Ale. It's very similar, actually. If you've had Troeg's Mad Elf Ale, there's cherry centric, and this I would say is not, but delicious. I love this.
Sweet. I am drinking the thing in my fridge that made me think most of Halo, and it's called from a brewery called Honor Brewing Company, and it's a cherry wheat ale, cherry wheat beer, and it says brew great beer, honor American heroes. And again, American heroes made me think of Master Chief. Okay. So that's why an Honor Brewing Company. I don't know. It was all very Halo-ish vibes, right? The beer itself, I'm actually not really a fan, and I'm usually a fan of like sweeter beers. So cherry wheat ale sounded great. It almost tastes. I'll say this: it has a better aftertaste than it has a forward taste, and that's rare. Right? Usually it's like, ooh, yummy, yummy, yummy. Oh, weird aftertaste. This is like, oh, it kind of tasted like medicine. Too much cherry, kind of too much cherry, right? Like it tasted a little bit like cherry medicine, almost synthetic, right? Synthetic cherry taste.
Gross. That's like Robitussin.
Yeah, exactly. But on the back end, it kind of had a bit more of like a lighter lilt to it, almost a nice little fruity, almost floral aftertaste. Maybe I just need to have a couple more sips of it. I'll drink the whole thing, even if I don't like it. It's fine.
Because it's beer and you have to.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the beer we're drinking. Anything you wanted to discuss before we jumped into things?
This is their Halo episode, and we haven't on this podcast talked about our thoughts about Halo Infinite. It's been out for a while. We've played it.
I feel like we're gonna hit that in the show, though.
You think so?
I think so. I'd like to think so. What we should talk about, though, is the awful microtransactions, because that's where the controversy is. Let's hit the controversy. So the game, the general consensus is the gameplay is highly well received. This is like probably the closest Halo game that 343, being the new developers, has gotten to like Bungie's classic Halo feel in regards to just the fun, while still also adding new elements, new game types, new things you can do with things like the repulsor and the grappling hook and stuff like that, and also the like new vehicles and weapons too. But we'll get into all greatness of it. But that's the general consensus, right? Is that the gameplay is really well received. The microtransaction progression system is a bit controversial. Termite, you wanted to talk about it?
Well, apparently it takes an astronomically long amount of time to get things to unlock. That's one thing that's kind of the bad. And then there's also the timed release of specific armors and colors. And tied to that is that certain colors can only be used on certain armor sets. And because they are timed, they go away forever, which invokes FOMO. All of those strategies are involved to get you to buy with real money the currency required to unlock said things as you progress through the ranks playing Halo Infinite's ranked mode and other modes as well. So it's really, really, really predatory, and it's really emphasizing the grind and spending real money. It is all cosmetic, so none of this stuff actually affects anything else. It literally is just how you look in the game, which a lot of people care about. And it just goes to back to the, I don't know, this is bad. Like, we shouldn't. I thought we got past this.
Yeah,
I thought we were past this.
No, I agree. And it's definitely like, it feels very much like, okay, like it seems like you're skirting up to that same line that you cross. I'm saying the industry, right? Like the developers are skirting up to that Battlefront line without crossing it, right? Like they're not doing loot boxes technically. And yes, technically it's all just cosmetic, but it still feels really slimy. Like, things like, the fact that there are certain like colors and stuff that are tied specifically to like the look of the armor, and they're not universal, meaning that if you unlock people always say like you have to pay to unlock the color blue, and even then after you've paid for it, it's only the color blue on that specific armor set. So you could very well pay for the color blue 5 times with the way the system's set up right now. It's kind of crappy. That's really crappy.
It's really bad.
I don't like it. Yeah. It's very predatory because, again, even if you don't necessarily care about cosmetics, like, that's still, like, you're still going to try to trick people into spending money. And I don't like it.
Yeah, and an example of that is a sword belt costs $15, and this item is only usable on one armor set, which players think doesn't do well to make it look like a good deal. $35 worth of premium event gear is locked in the Halo Infinite in-game store. So, yeah. Gating, astronomically like bad pricing. That's terrible. Apparently, there was an article that went out today, I think from The Verge, that was saying that the lead designer had promised to tweak it and change it because of the players' backlash. So there was a response today, and I don't have it up in front of me. I was unprepared for this section of our show by preparing for the other sections of our show. So it is going to be evolving. They are listening. I mean, Microsoft is a really, really consumer-facing company right now. Like,
that's why it shocks me they signed off on this. This is insane. This is coming from, I would say the fault in this case seems to lie specifically on 343, but like,
yes, because it was still signed off on by Microsoft.
It was signed off on by Microsoft, and that's the weird thing is like Microsoft isn't normally the company to push pushy microtransactions on people. I mean, I'm sure they're happy to make profit off of it, but this doesn't seem like Microsoft's MO. And I can see how Microsoft fans, this being sort of the flagship of next gen Xbox exclusives, I can see how this might make people shaky. Like, are you going to start doing this with the next Fallout? Are you going to do it with the next Elder Scrolls now that you have Bethesda? Are you going to do this with next Gears of War, right? Like, what is, I can imagine there being trepidation. So Microsoft has every reason to now put the brakes on this and get them to fix it.
Yeah,
as quickly as possible. So
it is still in beta, so we'll see.
That is, I think, what they might be getting away with right now, right? It's beta. It's not technically released yet, so stop complaining. I just am shocked, too, that, like, the people who paid for the $60 game don't get, like, the campaign. Like, you don't get any special cosmetics or anything, right? Like, they should at least
change that.
Yeah, right?
That's, like, bare minimum.
Absolutely, right? You're paying $60 for the game, and, yes, you're getting the campaign out of it, of course, but, like, get some specific, campaign-related cosmetics. It's fascinating seeing the conversation around Halo right now because it's like, wow, Halo's back. It's better than ever before. Also, what the heck? It's free to play, right? And they try to justify that by saying free to play. So it stands in that weird dichotomy of like, again, just because it's a good game doesn't justify the predatory practices.
Right.
Also, just because it's free to play doesn't justify the predatory microtransaction practices. It's like other games have done this better.
Yep.
But it's just video games, whatever. It means nothing. At the end of the world, like, at the end of the day, there's hyperinflation to worry about, and
Omicron.
Yeah,
Is that what it's called?
Omicron. And,
Is that really did I just say that? And
no, it's
that was
right.
a real thing?
Omicron is the new variant. Yeah. And
Okay.
there's what is it? The United States fell off the list of the top democracies or whatever, and there's a report that democracy is in decline. Yeah, there are more important things to worry about than the state of microtransactions in video games. But
those aren't our favorite things. But
no, they're not. Good transition.
Nailed it. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Oh, that was genius. I loved it. Favorite Things is a segment of our show where we share with you something that we are excited about this week, something that made us inspired or thoughtful or whatever, in hopes that you might find your next favorite thing.
My favorite thing is Thanksgiving. It happened. I will probably continue to talk about, we're recording 2 episodes tonight, so next week's episode you'll hear me talk about the move from Fredericksburg to Charlottesville. In the midst of that was the holiday of Thanksgiving, where I traveled back to my hometown of Fredericksburg to visit with my family, and we had a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner. My kids played with their grandparents again, and it was so quick from our move that it made us feel like we didn't move yet, or like we haven't fully left, even though we have no roots in Fredericksburg anymore. And it was really strange, but also familiar, and it was odd and a whole new experience for me mentally and all of those things. So, but Thanksgiving itself it was great. We had a meal, we had time together as a family to relax. I do all of the tech things that my family stacks up all of their tech issues, and they're like, hey, can you fix my printer? Can you transfer my stuff to a new phone? And I'm like, okay, here I go. And so I did all those things. And most people complain about that, but I actually enjoy doing those things because they're usually simple and I can just knock it out. And I feel like I've accomplished something.
That like now that I'm in a role where the kinds of things I fix are a lot more complicated and a lot more like highly specific to very specific types of like software and stuff and systems. Now the general just Windows troubleshooting, I'm like, oh, you're having a user profile error? Let's do a system restore. It's almost relieving, like when they just message me about something silly, right? And I'm like, like my sister did, and I was like, I don't mind it. I suddenly had a realization. I don't mind doing this anymore because I'm not doing it daily.
Nice. That's my favorite thing.
My favorite thing should be quick too. You'll hear me talk about Thanksgiving in our episode next week, and I guess we can plug that. We did an episode with the Flock, so you'll get to hear that next week. So we did an episode of their show a few weeks back, and that should be live, and you can find that in places that we'll talk about later. And then also, they joined us on one of our shows, so you'll get to hear that next week. So I talk about Thanksgiving there, since we actually recorded that before this, and I didn't realize that till now. So my favorite thing, if I have to pick another favorite thing from this week, would be the Wheel of Time TV show on Amazon. I
can't wait to watch it.
It's good. I mean, I didn't read the books, right? So I have not either. I've seen the gamut of opinions from book readers. I've seen book readers who are like, wow, this is actually good. Like, it may not be the exact, verbatim literalist version of the book, but it is, capturing the spirit of the books. Most importantly, it's sort of written the book, unlike A Song of Ice and Fire, the Wheel of Time is finished. So like they don't have to like make stuff up. And I think that people are like, wow, this is really capturing the spirit of where the books are going. And since they know where the books are going, they can actually do that. I've also seen people be like, this changed and this doesn't make sense and this is stupid and they made this weird decision and that's kind of dumb. And I get it. As a non-book reader, I'm like, I like this. This is good. This is some solid like fantasy. And the other side of the spectrum is so many people are comparing it to Game of Thrones, like journalists and stuff. Like, oh, it'll never be the next Game of Thrones. Of course it won't, because Game of Thrones is a flash in the pan. The next Game of Thrones is probably not even going to be a big budget fantasy. Why? Because Game of Thrones was just the next Breaking Bad, and Breaking Bad was the next Lost, and Lost was the next X-Files, right? Like, none of those shows have anything similar to one another story-wise, but
they're like lightning in a bottle.
Right,
it's a context thing. It's like the audience is ripe for the taking. The right piece of content happened at the right time.
Exactly. And that was Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Wheel of Time is doing something different, and it's not well, it may be trying to be Game of Thrones with the whole big budget fantasy or whatever, but it feels like a different thing. It feels closer to Lord of the Rings in like tone and stuff like that. And I like it a lot. As a non-book reader, I'm into it. I'm excited about where it goes, and the episodes. It actually kind of does make me want to read the books. I highly recommend anybody check it out. Then that's Favorite Things moves us on to our next segment, which is DLC. DLC stands for downloadable content. Downloadable.
That's-
Sweet beer. Wow.
Woo.
Downloadable content. It's a segment of our show where we have a little fun mini discussion that may or may not be related to our main topic. The intention is to have a discussion you wouldn't normally have about video games. This is not that, though, because our tradition for our Everything episodes is to do trivia. To each prepared ahead of time 5 questions and a couple bonus questions just in case there's overlap. And we are going to compete. We will each, one at a time, answer a question, and whoever wins the most correct answers and points then will hold the crown. I believe we've done one recently enough that the Metroid episode, Everything Metroid, so I believe I'm the current reigning
I feel like you've won
champ.
like the last 3 we've done. Yeah, I'm really in the trenches here.
Nah, you had a good run. You had a couple of good runs. I know you caught up at least at one point.
Yeah.
But cool.
It's all about the question selection. That's what I'm bad at. I give you too easy.
You do lowball me. I hope you highball me this time. So Halo trivia is what we're doing tonight. So we're doing Halo related questions. Like I said, it could be most likely will be related to the games, but it could be related to any of the content, any of the spin-offs, anything Halo, as long as it has Halo, Master Chief, Cortana, recognizable elements, or is like a cool, fun trivia fact about its making, then it is fair game. So I, as the reigning champ, I guess will go first. And you will answer my first question.
Oh, man. Okay.
My first question for you then is going to be, what are the titles of the 3 high prophets that rule the Covenant in Halo?
I was going to say I have no idea.
What? Really? You don't?
I don't think I know any of them.
If you can answer any of them right, I will give you a half point. Not even a third point.
The Oracle?
They're the prophets of blank, and then that's all the hint I will give you. And they each are the prophet of blank, 1, 2, 3.
So they each have a different blank.
Yes.
It's the prophet of blah and the prophet of blah 2 and the prophet of blah 3.
Is that your final answer?
No. I was just trying to articulate
yes.
Okay, so the prophet of... Yeah, I have no idea. I got nothing. Okay. I know none of them.
They're the prophets of truth, regret, and mercy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Halo
off
lore.
To a great start.
Yeah, off to a great... One of these days, we're both going to pick such hard questions for each other that none of us are going to be able to answer any of them.
Yeah, it's like all of our bonus questions and our main questions exhausted, and we each have one.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait.
Well, here's your extraordinarily... I'm gonna increase the difficulty of the answer of this question right now, because you can't see it. It was originally the bonus answer, but nope, that's going to be the answer.
All right.
What is Master Chief's name that's not John?
Spartan 117?
That's one of them, not the one I was looking for. That's more of like his title.
I see. John? Master
Not
Chief.
John.
Right, John 117, I think, was his designation.
That's his name, but the actual name that he's referred to in the game, other than Spartan or John,
Guardian?
is this one. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Wrong. It is Sierra 117. I didn't know that until I did my research today. So
interesting. Ha! Yeah. No, good. Right. That's good. That's the kind of question you need to pick.
Because the original answer was John 117, and you would have got it.
See.
So,
absolutely would have gotten that.
So I increased the difficulty on the fly because of how hard your question was.
All right.
Let's go.
Fire up. Next one. Number 2 for me. The human forces in the Halo franchise are led by the organization known as the UNSC. What does the acronym UNSC stand for?
United Nations Space Corps.
Oh, you were so close. I'm going to give you the point on that one. It's United Nations Space Command, but you are close enough that I feel like the listeners will agree that it's fair for me to give you the point there. So you are correct.
Yay, I got a point. Ding, 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 ding.
All right, what's next for me?
What people or race created the Halo rings?
Forerunners, bro. That's a low ball.
Okay, bonus.
Oh.
For an extra half a point.
Oh.
Where can all of the Halo rings be activated all at once?
The Ark.
There you go. Now you got 1.5.
Oh, 1.5. Awesome. Well, my next question has a bonus too. So
nice.
Which famous movie director, was trying to make a Halo movie back in the mid-2000s?
Peter Jackson.
Oh, bonus question. What movie did he make instead when the funding dried up?
Avatar?
No, that was James Cameron. District 9. He made.
Oh, I get Peter
Neil
Jackson and James Cameron
Blomkamp.
mixed up
You
so
do!
much. You're right. District 9. I saw it in theaters. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, you
Yep.
got 2 points to my 1.5.
Yeah. All right. What was Halo's original genre and title before it was called Halo? When I say genre and title, if you get one of the two, I'll give you the point. If you get both, it's 1.5.
I don't know. I'm going to answer this what I do know. I know that instead of Halo, it was supposed to take place in like a hollowed out planet, and it was called Solopsis.
I don't have any of that in my notes.
Okay, great. Then that's my answer, and apparently that's wrong.
Well, it might not be wrong, but what I have here is that it was a real-time strategy game, so it was a RTS.
Okay.
And it was codenamed Monkey Nuts and Blam.
That's funny. Yep. Nope. Didn't know that. Wouldn't have answered it correctly if I didn't have that other piece of factoid. So
yeah,
my thing was more like before they knew it was going to be on a ring world, they were considering like a hollowed out planet, and so that was the closest I had to that answer. But nope, cool. All right. Awesome.
What are the scores now? Because we're back to you.
You were at 2
to 1.5.
1.5. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So
cool.
shoot me.
My third question for you is: in Halo 1, the voice lines of the elites are actually the same recordings of what character, but with the sound reversed and distortion added. So what character also voices the elites? Just the character.
Ooh, is it Johnson?
It is Sergeant Johnson. Correct.
Yeah. Nice.
The wart is him going, go, 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 but in reverse and then distorted. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it's not og, but yeah, that's cool. Yep.
3 to my 1.5. I got some catching up to do. Hit me.
All right. You might be able to get this one. Here we go. What is Master Chief's armor's full name in Halos 2 through 5?
Mjolnir Mark. I don't know the number. I don't know if it's Mark II. Is it Mark II? Mjolnir Mark II?
I need your answer. You have Mjolnir Mark. Nailed that. But okay. I need the number because it's the full name.
I feel like I gave you United Nations Space Command, so Mjolnir Mark anything should be fair. But if you're going to deprive me of a point for a number, then I'm going to...
land on the most confident number you got.
Mjolnir Mark II.
It's 6, but okay, I'll give you the point.
Right,
there's a bonus here, though.
Okay.
There is a bonus, so you got that. And that's like a 0.75 rounded up to 1.
Sure.
So here's the extra half. There is a suffix that I found today when looking this up. If you know the suffix to all of the armor names, it has to do with like the Spartan armor class. You can get an extra half a point.
I literally don't. I'm not that big of a Halo nerd.
Okay, it's powered assault armor.
Okay, yeah.
And so there's a whole bunch of other things that are not Mjolnir, that are not Mark, but they're also powered assault armor. And because of Reach and like the other Spartans that you play, it's a thing. So anyway, okay. Nice. So you got a point.
So I got a point. So I'm at 2.5 again. 2.5 to 3. So still anyone's game. Still anyone's game.
All right, hit me with question 4.
Last
one, 5.
Last
Here
one,
we go.
5. And then there's a bonus question just in case.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the hard one. Or I hope this is hard. In 2004, when Halo 2 came out, they also launched an official soundtrack. What famous mid-2000s band
Apocalyptic
recorded songs for the Halo 2 soundtrack?
Oh, Apocalyptic.
There are 3 answers actually, and all you need to do for full point is to answer 2 out of the 3.
2 of the 3 bands, like groups?
Bands, groups, artists that recorded for the Halo 2 soundtrack.
Yeah. Oh, Apocalyptic, right?
Is that your final answer?
I only know one, and that's it. That's it.
Okay, that's actually incorrect. They're not on the Halo 2 soundtrack.
Nice.
The 3 bands that recorded songs were Breaking Benjamin, Hoobastank, and Incubus. All recorded tracks. Yep. Look at that. Look it up.
Oh, I love Hoobastank.
Oh my gosh, I hate it. That was the worst one. I didn't care for Breaking Benjamin, but I actually liked that song.
Huh.
I hated Hoobastank, and I hated Hoobastank's song on the Halo 2 soundtrack.
You don't like the band at all, huh?
I liked Incubus. All of Incubus's were interesting, though. They were just music.
Incubus is awesome.
Yeah, they weren't actually. There were no lyrics or anything. It was just music. Awesome.
Huh.
So
I had no idea that either of any of those bands did anything for Halo.
I loved the Halo 2 soundtrack, and I listened to it religiously. But the one song that I hated was the Hoobastank.
Nice. I have to go back and listen to it now.
All right. We are connected. We'll never be alone.
I don't know what song that was.
That's the song. That was the song from the Halo 2 soundtrack.
Oh, really?
He was psyched.
Oh,
Yep.
you're not selling that.
Huh? No, I'm not. Well, of course I'm not, because I hated it. So.
All right.
Well, that's my last one. So 2.5 to 3. If I get this, I might beat you.
I think you will.
But then I got a bonus question for you that might tie it up. What?
Why would you give me a bonus?
For a chance at redemption.
Oh, just out of the kindness of your heart.
If I win, then maybe it's redemption here.
You're gonna win because you should know this. If not, you can just turn in your Halo card. What was the name of the ship that Master Chief destroyed in the original Halo?
Truth and Reconciliation.
Is that your final answer?
It is my final answer.
You are incorrect.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wait, sorry, which Halo did you say?
The original Halo.
Okay, all right, yeah.
The Pillar of Autumn.
Oh, I knew that.
Truth and Reconciliation was another Halo later on.
Like
I think it was 3.
He did destroy the Truth and Reconciliation as well. That's where they
Not
were
in Halo 1.
Yes, that's where they were. Okay, all right. Sorry.
Look it up.
I want to look it up now.
Do it. Just check me.
Truth.
Now you're making me doubt myself.
It was the Covenant ship that was there. You know what? I'm gonna give it to you. As you're right. He does destroy the Pillar of Autumn, and in my quick research, can't determine whether or not the Truth and Reconciliation was destroyed on that Halo, so I'll accept that it probably wasn't, or at least not likely enough to make a big fuss out of it. So,
John 117 and Cortana return to Pillar of Autumn, finding the ship filled with Flood and Covenant forces to destroy the ring by detonating the still functioning fusion reactors.
They blew it up. They blew up both.
Attempt to activate the cruiser's self-destruct from the bridge.
You know, I probably should have just answered that they blew up the Halo ring, and I would have gotten it right.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what the bonus question is anyways, just for giggles?
Sure. Yeah, do it.
So what inspired the setting idea of a ring world, and therefore the name Halo? Like, where did they get the inspiration from? No.
Oh.
It was another sci-fi novel from the 70s. It was a novel called Ringworld by a guy named Larry Niven. You wouldn't have had to get 1970, but you would have had to get Ringworld and Larry Niven in order to get that one correct.
Cool.
So, all right. Well, then you still won. You won Halo.
Yay! Ding, 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 ding. Termite got a victory.
And that is DLC.
I'll take the W. I'll take it.
Yeah, you take that. Get any W you can.
Yep, that's it.
All right. Well, that is our trivia. That is DLC. So that can move us on to our main topic of Halo. You can tell we're both very passionate about this franchise. So, yeah.
It's so good.
It is. It's fantastic. So we're going to do everything Halo now. So, as always, we follow a fairly strict, format
rubric
here? Yeah.
Format?
Yeah.
Structure?
Template is what I'm looking for. And so, always we start off with just sort of a general high level. What kind of game is Halo?
Well, you have an answer here, so go for it.
I'll answer, sure. Just because they're in order, a certain order on our notes, doesn't mean we have to actually do that order, but that's okay.
I could have stole yours. I mean, what you have is what it is.
Right. So it's it's a first-person shooter. It's got a sci-fi military sci-fi setting, meaning it's not like scientists exploring worlds. It's like armies fighting one another in space. And I would describe it as classically FPS. What I mean by that is like very much so like a child of Doom in regards to the way the game looks, feels, plays, and is obviously with upscaled better graphics than Doom. But it's got two kind of split, like I call it a split game in the sense that like there really were like almost two development emphases with the game, and continues to this day to be kind of split up this way in regards to there's both a story-driven campaign with deep, rich lore and cinematic moments and experiences, while also having a really robust competitive multiplayer, almost esports level. This was like a pre-esports era competitive game. And those two developmental like pillars have always stood side by side with Halo as a franchise without one overshadowing the other, as far as I'm concerned. So
and gameplay wise, like you had the first person shooter aspect of it, but you also had the vehicles, which were very unique in the single player campaign, where you could jump into different vehicles and they behaved differently. They did different stuff. The mechanics were solid and everything felt amazing. The shooting was incredible, smooth, reactive. Everything felt great to shoot. The weapons had enough dynamics in between the different types of weapons to like make it feel worthy to do the trade-offs. And like, do you want range? Do you want power? Do you want accuracy? Do you want not? Like all the things in all of those regards in this story were great. But then you apply them at a multiplayer level with like different split screen. Like they took what we started with in the console space with GoldenEye and Perfect Dark on the N64 and like ramped it up. Like the Xbox was the next generation of consoles coming off the N64 and PS1 era. Microsoft's introduction to the console space with the Xbox, but also like Half-Life set the boundary, or set the bar for how you could tell a story in a first-person shooter on PC, where the events were happening around the player, and you could almost lose story beats by not looking in the correct location when things happened in Half-Life. And Halo continued to do that for the very first time in the console space. And you'd mentioned how this is like esports level competitive multiplayer. With Halo 1, people were landing Xboxes to do the 4v4 however many you could get, because the multiplayer was so good, but it wasn't connected to the internet yet when Halo 1 had
really
come out.
Enough internet, like it wasn't even
bandwidth.
Yeah, exactly. Bandwidth and even just proliferation, right? Like,
right.
I think we still had dial-up in 2000 when the game came out. So.
Yeah, we never had internet in our house until 2002,
exactly.
like right before Halo 2 came out. But yeah, with Halo 1, like it was totally lug your Xbox to your friend's house with 4 controllers.
I learned this. They didn't actually expect Halo to be... They didn't expect people to do that. They thought maybe like college students would do it who already had local area networks set up, like at like tech schools and stuff like that. They didn't expect just like kids to bring all their Xboxes together and have like all night Halo parties. So part of the limitations of having like, I think they only limited it to 4 Xboxes because they didn't expect anyone was going to do anything more than that. And yet then they did, and they were like, oh crap, there was actually no reason to limit it to 4 Xboxes. So yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, and wild, like the hardware for the Xbox included a broadband port, which was revolutionary because like the PS2 didn't, except until later when SOCOM had come out with Final Fantasy 11 and the network adapter with a hard drive. Like that was all expensive add-ons to the PS2, and then the GameCube had a modem as well, but it was also an add-on and no games really used it. This was like Halo, a launch title with the Xbox, had the ability to LAN your consoles together. It was just unheard of. It was wild in 2001 when the console dropped.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, that's sorry. We talked about like what kind of game is Halo. It's a first-person shooter. It has a multiplayer, split screen, 4 players per console, and it revolutionized competitive multiplayer. So
sure. Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk more about the impact and stuff like that and its legacy, but let's talk about its history first. Let's talk about where this game came from. So, obviously developed by Bungie. It was initially conceived as an indirect successor to Bungie's first-person shooter games Marathon and Marathon 2. According to co-founder Alex Seropian, certain motifs of both Halo and the Marathon series, such as their similar protagonists and representation of artificial intelligence, stemmed from a common stylistic archetype. Apparently, fans of Marathon talk about, like, Marathon being Bungie's other FPS game at the time. Apparently, fans of that game talk about how in the lore of that game, there's like a gap year between the two games. Like, not year, but like a gap period of time, because they're all both space sci-fi shooters. And fans of the game like to think that they take place in the same universe, but like Halo takes place in the gap year where, quote, nothing happened. It's like, oh, fascinating. So anyways, after they released Marathon 2, they began considering ideas for the next game. Undecided about where they wanted to take that franchise, they wanted to try something new, and so they began to develop a first-person shooter game described by co-founder Jason Jones as the natural extension of Marathon, which would have turned out to be something along the lines of Quake. But again, they wanted to just explore vehicular combat, which is one of the things that set Halo apart at the side, at the time, I mean. And that's kind of where, from there, it kind of just sort of evolved into what we recognize as Halo. So, yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And then from there, the game was just so massively successful. Probably, again, I've never heard of Marathon, and I've never heard of Myth the Fallen Lords, which is Bungie's other game. So really, this was the game that put Bungie on the map and really defined their 20 years of success, quite frankly. From there, they would have Halo 2, which would come out in 2000. So, Halo Combat Evolved came out in 2001. 2004 would see Halo 2. 2007 would see Halo 3. And then the last 2 games developed by Bungie for the Halo franchise were Halo 3, ODST, and Halo Reach, which are kind of spin-offs lore-wise, but are ultimately recognizably Halo games.
I definitely consider Halo Reach as a mainline. Sure. Like Halo 3 ODST was a DLC to Halo 3.
Yeah.
But Halo Reach was like, even though it doesn't have a number, like totally, and you don't play Master Chief, it's still completely a Halo game. It's a mainline entry for sure.
So those were the 5 kind of games. The contract, I guess they had a contract with Microsoft, and there was a big, I don't know if it was a falling out or just, I think Bungie wanted to move on and no longer be like an exclusive. I think their big motivation was they didn't want to be an exclusive Microsoft studio at the time, which is unfortunate, but because
you find like when Halo as we know it started development, like what year that was? It was released in 2001, but I imagine there's like a 4 or 5 year development cycle. So that would have put it in like 98.
Yeah.
Right?
See,
I don't know if you had seen it. I'm just guessing. But
no,
all I wanted to say was that Bungie had been in the Halo world since like the late 90s all the way through 2010 when Halo Reach had come out. And that's 12 to 13 years maybe of like being in one IP, writing a story that has to be cohesive and developing a game in the same world with the same kind of core mechanics. That's a long time.
It looks like, 1995 was when their marathon game came out. And so it looks like maybe as early as 1996 or 7, they started. But again, it still wasn't even recognizably Halo at that point.
Right.
And then,
but still,
for sure.
It's a long time just to be working on one IP and be kind of
right. So they wanted to move on.
Shoehorn into that.
I can still see them wanting to like make something else, and then Microsoft signing off on it, right? But like, I guess Microsoft wanted them to keep making Halo games. They disagreed. They parted ways relatively amicably, as far as I understand it. Microsoft kept the IP. Bungie went on to make Destiny, as we know,
right?
And under Activision at the time, and they parted ways, and then 343 Industries was established by Microsoft to take over Halo from there. And from that era of development, we would get Halo 4, and then 2012, and then Halo 5 Guardians in 2015, and then finally, Halo Infinite came out this year in 2021. And then there was also some spin-off games too in the Halo world. Halo Wars was a real-time strategy game, came out in 2009. There were 2 twin-stick mobile game shooters in 2013 and 2015, Halo Spartan Assault and Halo Spartan Strike. There would be a sequel to Halo Wars 2 in 2017, so another RTS. And then there were 2 games that came out in 2018 called Halo Recruit and Halo Fireteam Raven,
what are those?
I don't know. I'm guessing they're mobile games or something. I didn't look super into them because Wikipedia didn't have like a clickable link on those 2.
Weird.
So look them up. Let us know. We'll probably find out later. I didn't decide they were important enough for us to talk about. So
right.
Those are the kind of the spin-offs that take place though in the Halo universe, and that's pretty much the history of the game franchise. The games that came out and kind of how they took shape. So
to highlight like which consoles they came out on, Halo 1 and 2 were on the original Xbox.
Yep.
Halo 3, ODST, Reach, and 4 were on the 360. Halo 5 was on the Xbox One, and Halo Infinite is on the Xbox Series generation, but it is playable on Xbox One, so you can play it across everything. In fact, all of these games are now available through the Halo Master Chief Collection.
Yes.
And I think ODST and Reach are DLC things that are not included in the core game, but 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all there. And I'm not sure about Halo 5 on Game Pass, but Master Chief Collection is on Game Pass. So if you have that, you can pretty much play through all of them. And they've been remastered, at least 1 and 2.
This is a solidly Xbox franchise. This is one of the very few,
much so. Yeah.
like Xbox, Microsoft.
Master
properties.
Chief is Microsoft's Mario.
It really is. Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, again, with Microsoft's current strategy, like everything's available on PC as well for the most part. I have the Master Chief Collection. I can play it on my PC. I've got Halo Infinite's multiplayer and playing that on PC as well. So like it's still a accessible experience for people, I think.
Yeah.
Which is very different, I think, than especially PlayStation players and Nintendo players like you and I. We're just used to it being locked to a specific set of hardware. And so like for me, just the realization like, oh, I could download Halo Master Chief Collection from Steam. I wonder if Infinite's available. Oh my gosh, it's available on Steam. That's crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yep.
So cool. All right. Well, our next question is what are your first experiences with Halo? What do you love about Halo? And why does it stand out to you as a notable franchise worth talking about for 30 to 40 minutes? My answer is pretty simple, pretty easy. I was, I think I did the math earlier. I would have been in 7th grade, middle school, when Halo 1 came out. And it was either my friend Nate or my neighbors. I did not have an Xbox. So my Xbox experiences were all specific to either my friend Nate or my neighbors who had Xboxes. and I was never allowed to play Doom. And the only other FPS game that I had any experience with was GoldenEye. And though an amazing game, terrible controls. Terrible first-person shooter controls because the freaking Nintendo 64 controller was not designed for any gaming configuration known to mankind, much less first-person shooters. And
the
was
best
needlessly
situation
obtuse.
was introduced by Turok, and no one else knew it, but the joystick for aiming on the left hand and the C buttons for moving on the right hand was actually the way to go, and I didn't realize that until well after the N64 had sailed off into the sunset. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I played Turok on the computer, now that I think about it. I think my experience with Turok was on PC, and so therefore it was normal, which I would have had before this, yes. But I would say this was my proper introduction to first-person shooters. This was my coming-of-age first-person shooter game.
Halo was.
Yeah, I would have been like 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was blown away by everything, like the vehicles, the twin stick controls. Again, coming from GoldenEye, where you had to like hit the Z button to like aim, and you were stuck wherever you were. It was stupid. So being able to be like, oh, there's 2 joysticks. Oh, and I could aim with one of them was amazing. Like realization. And then it had great physics. It had hilarious ragdoll physics. So it was one of those games where you just play with your friends for hours and are cracking up the whole time because it's amazing. And just like having that experience, it really would shape my taste in not just first-person shooters, but competitive games, period, where like this is the experience when I get together to play couch games with friends, whether it's competitive, especially if it's competitive, it's like it has to match the feelings I had with Halo. And I mean, it was the first game that I felt motivated to like, let's get all of our friends who have Xboxes together to play this. Like never before in my life up to that point had I been like that was something I wanted out of life, but I was just reaching the age where like staying up all night was an achievement, right? Like it was like it was like achievement unlocked. If you stay up all night and play games with friends, especially if it's Halo, then you are a god amongst middle schoolers. And yeah, that Halo was that experience for me, was just getting together and like 4 versus 4 capture the flag on separate Xboxes. Nobody could screen cheat. Mwah. I loved it.
Yeah. And did you do like the same team on one Xbox so that screen cheating was like not a thing? Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
We did the same. Yeah. We had like a house that we took our Xboxes to for Halo 1, where we ran a really long LAN cable from different floors. So like we were on the main floor and one team, and the other team was upstairs. It was wild. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would read the Halo. I mean, I also loved just like everything about the game was just solid at the time. I mean, it was such a solid experience. No wonder it is almost arguably solely responsible for the Xbox's success. It was a well-crafted game, even by today's standards. Great music, great controls, great sound effects and visuals and world building and atmosphere and storytelling and voice acting and art. And it had all this extended universe stuff. I read all the books. At the time, there were like 3 books that came out like after between Halo 1 and Halo 2 that were amazing books. Just everything about the experience is so freaking good.
It is.
And I got into it. It hooked me. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you could go buy an original Xbox right now, used, of course, and like an original copy of Halo and a controller and start playing it. And it would be everything about it aged well.
Yeah.
Except maybe the graphics, but they're not as bad as like the N64 generation, PS1.
Yeah, and if you play the 10th anniversary edition, it cleans them up.
They refreshed it, right? So they refreshed it for 360, and then you can get the Master Chief Collection, you can get the port in 4K with the new graphics, and like it's awesome. So yeah. My first experience with Halo was actually at a LAN cafe, way after its release. It was in 2002, which was a year after Xbox and Halo would come out. Like I'd heard about it and I knew it was like people were playing it, but I didn't have an Xbox. I had no interest in Xbox. I was a Nintendo guy, PlayStation man. So we went to a LAN cafe to like play Counter-Strike and Quake and Unreal Tournament and StarCraft and Diablo and all these cool PC games. And we had gotten broadband in our home, so I was focused on like first-person shooters on PC, and my history at the time had been all N64 first-person shooters. So like the PC space revolutionized my experience with first-person shooters. And then like even on PlayStation 2, we had Unreal Tournament. I had a PS2. We got it at launch, and I played first-person shooters there as well. But so I had little to no experience with Halo, and we went to a LAN cafe with a group of friends, and I can't remember one of my friends recommended like, hey, Halo's amazing. You should play it. Let's all play it while we wait for, this tournament to start or something, whatever we were doing. And so we sat down in this LAN cafe that offered an Xbox for free. We just played split screen 4-player, which took me back to my, at the time I was nostalgic for GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and other N64 games. So I was sitting at this couch in a public space playing Halo, and I was like, this is incredible. This is absolutely amazing. And I know I can have, some PC Master Race people will say like, you can have a better experience on PC with different games, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, this is so good that I am sitting here in a LAN cafe waiting or doing something with Counter-Strike or Quake. I need an Xbox. I need to go buy one. This is awesome. So I actually sought out an Xbox and ended up with this weird deal where a friend of mine bought one, but he didn't want it anymore. And so I took his and traded it in, and he gave it to me, and I wanted my own new one. So I traded in his used up busted one for a brand new one and paid $80 for a console. It was right before and leading up to the hype of Halo 2 when I did all of that. So I had my own Xbox at the time, and that's when I started going to LAN parties with friends, and like Halo 2 was right around the corner. And there was some hype for Halo 2 that I have never recreated. Like you talk about lightning in a bottle.
Oh my
like
gosh.
The Halo 2 hype was something very unique and extremely, extremely prevalent everywhere I went. School, everyone was talking about it at school. It was my group of friends highly anticipating it. It was magazines, TV, like the G4 Tech TV kind of stuff was going. I don't remember what iteration of
the
that.
The soundtrack came out and I listened to it.
Yes.
There were times when I would be more into music than others. Dude, I would just listen to that thing. I would sit in my room and listen to it for hours. I didn't have I didn't have an Xbox. I wasn't going to be playing this game other than like begging friends to let me come over and play it. I never had an Xbox.
Yep.
I still got my hands somehow on the soundtrack. Probably had a friend rip it off for me illegally because that was what was totally happening in 2003 or 4.
Yep.
Anyways, doesn't matter. I listened to the mess out of that just for hours on end. Halo soundtrack. Amazing.
The hype was real. It really was. So, of course, the game was coming out, and I did the midnight release thing. I couldn't even drive. A friend of mine who could drive drove us over there. We picked up our copies at GameStop. There was a massive release party back when midnight releases were way cooler than they were then. Like, they're terrible now, but back then it was like a thing. There was a tent. There was swag. There was a huge party. I think a van pulled up with like radio DJ going on. Music was pumping. Like, it was awesome. We got our copies. We raced home. Like, my friend recklessly drove home. Like, he was probably, he's a teenage boy, like not driving safely at all to get home. He had to drop me off and then go home and play his own game. I stayed up for 8 hours after getting my copy. So we're talking like 8:30 or 9 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
I took a 2 or 3 hour nap and I woke up and played it for another 8 hours straight. I was obsessed with Halo. I played it for so much because the hype around Halo 2 was also met with the very first time a video game console could connect to broadband internet in the mainstream via Xbox Live. And like, I could party up with friends and join games together as a party for the very first time in a way that has never been done, even on PC. On PC, to play Counter-Strike or Unreal or Quake or any of those games, you had to know the server IP, you had to fire up TeamSpeak, you had to have separate chat hardware. The Xbox had a chat headset with it, Xbox Live Kit. It was like online, friends list, join the game together. So you could get 4 people together and you would just go game to game to game to game. You could make new friends online because you could do like random chat. It was absolutely earth-shattering, groundbreaking in the console world, and Halo 2 just took me over. And like, that was my very first kind of, I guess, 2 years around the release of Halo 2 and previously to that. So yeah, definitely formative for sure.
In the interest
if
of
I
time,
haven't done that,
we're gonna blast through favorites and rankings. So we want to do this with every of our everything episodes. So we always do this. We have pre-selected kind of categories because they differ depending on the game and franchise, but some of them are always the same. But we're gonna list our personal favorites or our rankings of these aspects of the games. So what's your favorite mainline Halo game, including ODST and Reach?
Halo 2.
Mine too. Yeah, Halo 2. I agree. It's just like, amazing. I would say that Halo 3 probably has the best multiplayer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
for sure. Like by today's standards, like me and my friends got together to play Halo 3 recently, and it was just so good. But Halo 2 is just like you said, it was a phenomenon. It was lightning in a bottle, so good.
Yeah.
Favorite spin-off Halo content doesn't even have to be a game. It could be the weird movies they make and stuff like that. Content book could be books, could be anything.
Halo Wars.
Okay,
I haven't played 2 yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, mine would be. This is kind of a cop out. I don't know if this is a cop out answer or not, but it was not like made by Microsoft or Bungie, but I absolutely adored Red versus Blue as like a Halo related piece.
Yeah, I didn't think about that as a Halo.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's just. I mean, it was made with Halo. Like before Rooster Teeth became the like massive, crazy entertainment corporation. Like they started by making these crappy Halo videos that were hilarious and amazing. And so Red vs. Blue for sure. Favorite character in the game's lore and everything.
I love the protagonist in like everything. So John 117, Sierra 117, Master Chief, whatever you want to call him, he's my favorite character.
I love Sergeant Johnson. I still quote Sergeant Johnson to this day.
You do.
I do. Yeah. I say my favorite quote from him is going, I know what the ladies like. Because at one point he like, I don't know, he gives you a tank or something and Cortana's like, oh, you got us a tank. And he goes, I know what the ladies like. And this is my favorite. I love him. He's so good.
Nice.
Top 3 weapons. This could be anything that does damage in the game other than vehicles, because that's a separate question.
Right. The assault rifle.
Okay.
The battle rifle.
Gosh, you're so boring.
I really am. And the Covenant carbine. What do you call that? Mm-hmm. It's a single shot.
That's what it is. I think it's or plasma carbine or something.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. You are the most vanilla person I think I've ever met. I like the plasma rifle from all the games, or all the games that had it. I when I learned, it was one of the first times when I was like thinking strategically, I was like, oh man, shield stripping, amazing.
Right.
Was one of my favorite things to do. Plasma rifle, sticky grenades, I'm going to count. And
plasma grenades,
oh my gosh, there's nothing more satisfying than sticking someone. And then I'm going to go with the energy sword, man. Like that thing.
Halo 2, man. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. When they introduced it, when they introduced the idea of like you put the reticle around them and if you were within range, you'd like lunge.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. In case new folks are here, don't really know what Halo it has for its multiplayer, you have a shield and you have a health.
Yeah.
So your shields deplete first and then your health. And in Halo 2, you could dual wield weapons. And one of the best combinations you could have was the plasma rifle with a submachine gun.
Shredder. I call it the shredder combo.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was like, because plasma.
Exactly.
Anything plasma related strips shields really fast, and then bullets strip health really fast. Exactly. So it was like play into its strengths. Yeah. Yep.
Top 3 favorite vehicles.
Oh my gosh. My favorite vehicle is by far the Ghost.
Me too.
Loved the Ghost. That's all I did. I tried to find the Ghost in every map.
Splatter. Yeah, no, I would splatter people and then say because at the time there was this sort of like marketing around Snickers and their whole tagline was, is there a more satisfying crunch? So I would splatter people and then go, is there a more satisfying crunch? And I thought myself the most clever middle schooler in all of middle school. So Ghost, all right. What else?
Yeah, the Ghost. I did like the Scorpion. That was kind of fun to play as because it felt so powerful. Like it was slow, but it was big and it felt super powerful. You could one shot pretty much anything out of the sky, out of the ground.
It took a significant effort for people to actually like get you out of the thing. And they eventually like the whole mounting mechanics and stuff they eventually introduced, which are great, awesome, kind of more balanced.
Yeah,
but it still was always intimidating. It was like the tank. And I always liked it more than the Wraith, right? The Covenant version where it was like a lobber.
Yeah, the Wraith always was like, meh.
It was like, okay, get it if you get it, but like it's not my preference.
Yeah. And going back to the Ghost, my favorite thing to do in a Ghost was to troll the tanks because you could spin around, like you could strafe around the Scorpion tanks and you could kill them. Like I think the weakness of the tank was the Ghost. And so I love the Ghost, but I also love the Scorpion. Yeah. And then the Banshee is my third favorite.
Mine got all 3 of mine. Like because they introduced them in Halo 1, but you can't actually ride them. So there are all these like everyone was trying to figure out the strategy of like, okay, if you can snipe the elite who's driving the Banshee, you can get it to land in such a way where you can then get in it, right? But but you couldn't actually do that in Halo 1. And so when they introduced it in Halo 2, it was like, finally. And it had the Gauss cannon on too, the secondary fires. Oh man, Banshee. Sweet,
Fuel
awesome.
rod cannon,
That's one
Gauss
of the
cannon.
Gauss. Yeah, Gauss is from Doom, I think. So
Okay.
yes, fuel rod. You're right.
Yeah.
Wow, we're aligned in that almost perfectly. That's awesome.
Yeah, look at that.
All right, favorite alien races could be Flood, could be any organization.
I answered all the other ones, and then we lined up. So you go with this one. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, my favorite alien race. I was partial to the elites. I was really partial. I always liked the Arbiter. I like their story. I like their role in the story. I like the whole like conflict between them and the brutes. I was very invested in that, especially as a kid. Yeah, I was always a big fan of the elites.
I was going to just say the Covenant in general,
well,
which I guess is the same as the elites. Maybe the elites are like one brand
one
of Covenant
faction. Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions, but then I looked it up and realized there were a bunch of races they added to the Covenant, and I was like, oh, I'm not comfortable. I'm not enough.
Oh, right, because the Covenant is more like
exactly. That's why I said races. It's like a bunch of different groups. Yeah. So is there a member of the Covenant that you like better than others?
I didn't even realize that until right now when we're recording. But I guess what I've equated to the Covenant was the elites, so it's the same as yours. Cool. But I will say that like I didn't like the brutes when they were introduced. I just didn't find them interesting. And the Flood are annoying and a parasite that have like a grave mind mentality, and I just thought them as like a bad, icky, gooey, disgusting thing that I don't really like.
I'm fascinated by the idea of the Flood. They did such a good... The introduction of the Flood in Halo 1 was one of the few twists in any video game that was handled, I would argue, almost perfectly.
No one ever talks about the Flood.
And no one talks about the Flood. But they were again, not only did they switch up your gameplay, like, so for the entire rest of the game, you're fighting Covenant. They have shields. So you're, like, killing them, taking their weapons, and using them against them. Then the Flood get introduced, and suddenly human weapons, anything with bullets suddenly become, like, the creme de la creme, right? Shotguns, pistols, assault rifles, it all became, like, you needed them. And so it switched up the gameplay, switched up the strategies, being swarmed by little things, and also zombies, and also exploders, made the, like, heart-racing tension. So I'm fascinated by the Flood from a simple gameplay design. At the end of the day, they're just parasites that turn you into zombies. Like, they're not that interesting to me. The
most interesting thing about the Flood is the grave mind mentality, and it's there's this whole lore about how they establish themselves and eventually evolve to the point where they've taken over so many things, they have control over each other, and it's a hive mind situation. But they call them grave mind, and that's a thing. Boring. The Forerunners are dumb. And then what is the thing they added even after the Forerunners?
I don't know, man. I don't.
Halo 5.
There's
a new.
I didn't play 5.
Yeah, they're all bad.
Stupid. Yep.
So I hope Infinite brings it back to its true return to form, because I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
Which goes into our next question: do you like multiplayer or single player better?
Which do you think is the better version of the game? Is the multiplayer better, or is the single player? I mean, honestly, it depends on the game. Like I said, Halo 3 had a fine campaign. It was a fine kind of sort of end to the series, but I don't remember much of it. I remember that it was very clear they sidelined the Arbiter because people didn't respond to him as well as I did in Halo 2. I thought the Arbiter was awesome. Arbiter is one of the things that made Halo 2 amazing for me.
Yeah. Yep.
But apparently I'm of the minority, I guess, of Halo fans, at least at the time. So they sidelined him, and so I remember it was kind of like you worked alongside him, but you never took control of him. It was all Master Chief again. But the multiplayer was amazing. Yeah, for 3.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, Halo 2 might not have had the most amazing multiplayer. They tried to introduce a couple of new things in Halo 2 that they ended up, redacting, like the dual wielding and stuff like that didn't end up showing up in future franchises. But I thought the campaign and everything was amazing. So, but I would say if I were to pick one to live with the rest of my life, I would still go with the single player. But that's my predisposition, right? Yeah.
Single player? Really?
Yeah, I'd still go with the campaign. If I had to, if you were to, say, if you play if you pick one of these and if you play the other one, will shoot you.
Huh.
Then I would go with the single player probably.
Nice. I was on team multiplayer until you said that. And then I realized when I installed the Master Chief Collection on both my original Xbox One 6 years ago or whatever, and now my Series X, you can change how much space it takes up by not installing multiplayer. And I never installed multiplayer on any of them ever on PC or Xbox.
I'll add to your reinforcement of that belief by saying that in addition to that, you can still play co-op. So
co-op is awesome.
The campaign,
yeah,
right?
But that doesn't. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. We're not talking about the competitive multiplayer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so, cool.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I would choose single player over multiplayer because playing through the campaign with friends, co-op is super fun. But also when I want to play Halo 2 again, I'm not going online to play the retro Halo 2 online.
Yeah.
Although Infinite's kind of changing that. Like I haven't
That's
played
true.
a
Yeah.
competitive online thing in a while, but in general, the entire Halo franchise, single player is where it's at.
Yep, I agree. Well, but speaking of multiplayer,
Yeah.
pivoting into that, what's your favorite multiplayer map?
Zanzibar. From Halo 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say Blood Gulch is classic for me, and
Yeah,
maybe
Blood
that
Gulch
makes
is
me
from
the
Halo
vanilla.
1.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
made me make me the vanilla. I also was pretty partial to Sidewinder when you had a big enough group for it, but
Yeah.
Blood Gulch was
Zanzibar was that map that had that huge windmill on the side and like a beachfront, and then it just had a lot of dynamics to it. There was an indoor kind of urban space to the map. It also had the beach, which was wide open, and
I remember that.
some vehicles too, made it really fun. Yeah.
Cool. And what's your favorite multiplayer rule set / mini game?
SWAT.
Interesting. Okay.
Love SWAT.
Yeah, this is hard for me to pick. Capture the Flag is probably number one, right? Because no other game did Capture the Flag. In my opinion, no other game ever did Capture the Flag as well as Halo, period.
I think it solidified
It did.
Capture the Flag.
It really just sort of...
I mean, Unreal Tournament probably like...
I'll put it this way. It both
established it.
Unreal
Halo
Tournament established
realized it.
Halo realized it, but also burned it out. Nobody else... nobody was like, okay, everyone's like, okay, Halo did it. We're not going to do it because we want to not be Halo. And so I'd say Capture the Flag, though, was creme de la creme for me. I also was pretty partial to zombies when they introduced that in Halo 3, though. So, like, formally introduced it, not just the Halo 2 version where everyone got together and did it. But yeah, so cool.
SWAT in Halo is no shields, no motion sensor, and guns that are well suited for headshots.
It just might as well be Counter-Strike.
Or Call of Duty.
It might as well be like, hey, Penguin, you suck at headshots, so screw you.
And as a avid Counter-Strike player going into Halo 2, SWAT was awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, we have only a little bit of time to do these last two questions, which sucked because they're like the most important questions of this whole thing.
Well,
but we have kind of
hit
on it. Yeah. So, like, quick summary: what do you think the impact, influence, innovation that Halo has brought to the industry? My answer is that Xbox dominance traces back to this game. Halo 2 drove online multiplayer on the Xbox. And every first-person shooter, at least in the 2000s, was trying to chase Halo, or trying their hardest not to be Halo, right? Like try to set themselves apart.
Yeah,
and at least that would last until Call of Duty and Battlefield would become the mainstream.
No, I would argue that Call of Duty Battlefield became the mainstream because of Halo.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So going back to console space narratives with first-person shooters, like the storytelling aspect never happened on console before. It's never been done on that scale at that quality that Halo has done with Bungie. It really pioneered the mechanics and the feel of a first-person shooter on a console. The idea of a twin-stick shooter that is so foundational to people hook up controllers to PCs to play everything from like Apex Legends to Fortnite through like all the modern stuff that people play.
Dude,
people hook up controllers to, and those controls.
People still prefer Souls games. Like Souls players prefer controllers over mouse and keyboard, and it may be the only genre that I'm aware of where that preference is like, this is actually, it's advantageous for you to use a controller in this genre.
Yeah, because
of that. But yes, Halo.
And like that twin stick control, even with a third person game like your Souls-like games, like was foundational because of Halo. Like Halo established that it exists because of Halo. 100%. They really nailed it before other consoles could do it.
They made it feel satisfying in a way that up to that point had felt clunky. I think nothing about Halo 1, even to this day, feels clunky.
Right, and you can still go back and play it. It aged like a fine wine.
Exactly.
So Call of Duty would not even exist today if not for like going after that Halo multiplayer crown, whatever it was.
And they surpassed it arguably, but still. Cool, awesome. Last question then, and we'll end here. I think we have enough time for it. Real quick, once again, though, couple sentence answer. What would you like to see from future Halo games? Or alternatively, what is your Halo game wish list? So for me, I would love a full remake of the original trilogy with modern shooting design, 4K graphics, 60 frames per second, and the stuff that was introduced in later Halo games. Give me Halo 1, but let me fly around on the Banshees.
Banshees?
Let me have the sprint. Let me have some of the later, more interesting guns. Maybe not all of them, as they don't all fit with the lore of Halo 1, but whatever. Like, give me some of the modern trappings of Halo, but give it to me with the Halo 1 story, the Halo 1 music, the Halo 1 voice acting, all like a full, like a Final Fantasy 7 style remake. But with Halo in a first-person shooter with all the lessons they've learned thus far. Also,
like from the ground up, not a port, like start from nothing and remake
and
the original Halo
the
trilogy.
Whole trilogy, yes.
Yeah.
Mwah. Also, contract Bungie for a collaboration. I don't see any reason why there should be any more bad blood between Bungie and 343. If you had asked me in 2007 if there was bad blood between Halo and 343 or Bungie and 343, yes. 2021, no.
Nah,
they've had their whole
on.
Activision phase.
Yep.
It's time for Bungie and Microsoft to get back together again to make nice. Doesn't mean they have to be a studio under Microsoft. It would be awesome if Microsoft bought them. I feel like that would be a natural fit. But I feel like Bungie and Microsoft can make up now, kiss and make up. And I feel like a game from the two of them, a Halo game, yes. Obviously, stop messing with the microtransaction BS. Halo Infinite, fix it and stop doing it.
Yep.
And then I would love more spin-offs, right? The world building in Halo was one of its strengths, and they did such a good job building that world through, novels and everything. There's absolutely no reason why there should be only Halo Wars and some Spartan Assault games. In fact, get away from the Spartans altogether and give us games with the Arbiter. I thought was a great character. He deserves a spin-off. And there's so much in the Halo world they could do, so many time periods, so much lore and world building that there should be all kinds of Halo games, and I'm shocked that Microsoft and 343 have not properly taken advantage of that. And I would also love to see a planet hopping game. So thinking like Mass Effect Destiny, where it's not open world in the sense of a big field,
full
an open
exploration
field like Breath of the Wild, but it could be open areas that you warp to and give you that sort of I'm going to another planet, space adventure, spacefaring idea, which is a bunch of planets that you can just go explore at your leisure while still being a compelling. Halo is just right for that. That would be amazing. Going to different Halo rings that each have different biomes. Amazing. That'd be awesome.
It'd be sweet.
Yep.
Which actually inspired me for my answer, because I read yours first and I was like, oh, you just lit my creative mind, what little bit there is, on fire. And I think a ridiculously involved Mass Effect style sci-fi RPG set in the world of Halo, but not starring Master Chief or even a Spartan would be awesome.
Dude, and a UNSC captain, just like a UNSC commander. Anyone.
Sure, but also, like you said, the Arbiter or maybe another elite on the Covenant side, or maybe both, where you go through in one aspect and you see another aspect, and
and the choices you make in one affect the choices the other one has to
that would be
with.
wild. It'd be awesome. I'm thinking a BioWare, Knights of the Old Republic, crazy deep Dragon Age RPG. And if you want to get into the quality or an analogy, think of the Mandalorian to Star Wars.
Yes.
So it's not the Jedi. It's not anything in the main Star Wars movies at all. It's the Mandalorian, which is a race of people. The show on Disney Plus is amazing. It's arguably the best Star Wars content that has been made in decades. It's amazing. But for Halo. So you highlight a character that's awesome, deep, but it's happening around the events of the Halo games. And so you can see the events of the games affecting you or your people or your race or your interactions or your other NPCs, and get that. Look at the side character. It's wrapped up in the events, their own narrative, new content, new stuff, single player only. And I don't, not even first person shooter, maybe third person shooter, maybe hack and slash, but I'm thinking something entirely different that separates it mechanically from anything Halo has ever done, I think would be such a breath of fresh air for the Halo IP. And it would draw so much in the world today where we love games like Jedi Fallen Order and Outer Worlds or something along those lines, Fallouts, etc., Starfield, that kind of thing. So yes, that's what I want from Halo.
Love it. All right. Well, we want to hear what you want from Halo. We want to hear, do you love this franchise? Do you hate this franchise? For the last 20 years, have you thought Halo is the most overrated thing and they're wasting their time talking about it? We want to hear those thoughts. We want to hear your love and adoration and all your favorites and everything from this franchise. We want to hear it all and more. And Termite, where can they share their thoughts if they have them?
You can talk all about Halo with us at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80bitpodsmash.com. It's our landing website where we have links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, as well as Discord server link in all of our show notes where you can interact with us live. Be sure to jump into twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash and follow us on our Twitch channel where sometimes we will go live. Our schedule hasn't been officially formalized yet for this year, but going into next year, we will have a schedule, so just go ahead and subscribe to us or follow us there so you'll be made aware of when we go live to stream some of our favorite games with y'all. And I think this episode will have already aired after the Game Awards, but if you missed that, you can go find that video on demand at YouTube, and that link is also at 80bitpodsmash.com. You can find links to all of our other podcasting platforms, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, as well as... Wait, Halo. No, Game Awards are this week. Twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. Game Awards, live stream. We will be there. We're going to watch the whole show together. It's going to be awesome. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern on December 9th. So make sure you follow us along at Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all of the other podcasting platforms. If we don't exist somewhere that you would like us to be, let us know. We'll put ourselves there. We do have the RSS feed link there for your convenience to throw into any third-party app of your choice. And that is where we are.
Awesome.
Everywhere.
As mentioned, next week we are doing an episode with the guys from The Flock, and that episode is topicked around our home state of Virginia and whether it is friendly or not to gamers and gaming. And you have that to look forward to then, so we'll see you then.
See you next week.